All right. So here we are at the final phase of this video, the moment you guys have all been waiting for, and I have been waiting for as well, the CRM implementation of the SOP. Guys, I'm so excited. I don't know why, but I just am obsessed with building out workflows and just helping firms really and truly navigate through CRM. So this walkthrough is really a pleasure for me, and probably I'm a lot more excited than you are. But before I get us right into that video, I just want to go ahead and recap on everything we have done so far and really show you the way that we've been able to make it through to this point. And you guys have been along for an amazing journey, and we are almost at the end. So to recap, the first thing I want to speak about is the SOP and the different concepts involving that SOP. And if you guys can recall, we spent some time talking about the objective, the stakeholders, understanding the CRM features, communication channels, response time guidelines, communication templates, documenting client interactions, confidentiality and compliance, and feedback mechanisms. We've been talking about a lot. In addition to that, we've actually also spent some time going through an SOP, as you guys remember, and the SOP covered all the different concepts that we spent time really working through and talking about in the first part of the video. And as you remember, we had the objective, the scope, the procedures, and the procedures really went through in a lot more detail about the different areas that the stakeholders involved in the firm are going to be responsible for carrying out to get the client to understand the different steps within the trademark application process. While we're here, one quick thing that I wanted to make sure that I pointed out to you guys was in the comprehensive report and knockout search milestone within the procedure section. And I wanted to highlight that I know that some firms like to send out a memo to clients, and that memo would usually include the comprehensive report and the recommendations from the attorney all within that memo. If you're a firm that sends out a memo, definitely feel free to supplement that inside of the first step here, instead of sending out the email with the comprehensive report and the recommendations within the body of the email, or with the comprehensive report being attached and the recommendations from the attorney being within the email. You can instead include the memo as the attachment or as a link there inside of the email, and then send it out to the client. Not to worry, once we get into the CRM walkthrough phase, I'll definitely show you what that looks like. But I wanted to make sure that I stressed that if you're a firm that does things slightly different, you're more than welcome to make changes to the SOP or the examples that we're doing here today to fit the needs of your firm. I just did it as a email so that you could see where you would be able to go ahead and put in your recommendations to send that email out to the client. Obviously, there's many different ways that you can go about handling this. The whole point is just to ensure that we're really stressing effective communication to the client so that they feel like they're being included in the process and they are understanding what exactly is going on when it comes to their trademark. And that's all that we're trying to showcase here today. And really, the underlying factor here is to showcase effective communication in a standard operating procedure. I really have enjoyed spending the time going through these different concepts with you, and I hope that you have honestly been able to find it helpful. Let's go ahead and go into the video. Okay, to get started, I want to take us through the email templates that have been created based on the effective communication milestones that we've been talking about in the first two parts of the video. And so as you see here, there are about 7 different communications prepared under email templates for us to be able to send them to the client at the appropriate time, right? And the first one is going to be the email that we send with the comprehensive report. And this email is going to have the recommendations you can take a minute and take a look at it, and it's really straightforward. It has the appropriate links that are necessary to bring in the report as an attachment or you can even do it here as a link. This email actually has it as a link. And it also has the link for the time to schedule with the attorney should the client want to speak with the attorney about the comprehensive report. So if you recall, one of the things that we talked about was communication templates, and this is a communication template. We also talked about response time guidelines, and in here to the client, from the client side, there is a response time request to get back to the firm with approval on whether the comprehensive report is ready to go to the next phase, if client approves of the recommended classes that were mentioned inside of the email. And obviously there are no recommendations here, but the attorney would have the ability to add in the recommendations in this particular area here. So you can go ahead and bullet them. And as you know, if you go into the more paragraph option, you can definitely use the bullets that are accessible here to list out the different recommendations for the different classes. Now, if you wanted to send a memo instead, we briefly went over that a few moments ago. So if you want to go ahead and send a memo instead, you can always send the memo by having a different kind of email. And this email actually talks about linking to the memo, and the memo will have the recommendations already inside of it, as well as the comprehensive report. From there, they can also still book the scheduling link should they need to schedule time with the attorney to be able to discuss whatever they have questions or apprehensions on from reviewing the comp report and the recommended classes. Moving on and going back into the email templates, you'll see that there are templates that cover every other phase. There's a trademark filed email template. There is a trademark for no update email as well. And this email would be an email that you would send a few different times should the application not reach to a phase where there's any change that the client needs to be made aware of. We've also created an email here because we discussed possibly having an office action issued throughout the process of the trademark application. And so there is an email here that talks about the office action. And there are actually two different kind of emails. So you see one that marks 5A, and there's another one for 5B. 5A is when the office action that was issued is very straightforward and there's no additional information that's needed from the client, and you don't need to actually speak with the client to move forward with updating the application and sending it back through. Now, in the event that there is a situation where you would need to speak to the client, there's also this type of email that you would send with a link to let the client know that they need to schedule time to speak with you. You'll also notice that the subject line of the email is slightly different because it says action required, as opposed to the other email that's drafted here that just says status update on your trademark application. So depending on the situation, you can create different kinds of emails and have them factored in a little bit differently. One of the things to note here too is that if you're a firm that just picks up the phone and calls the client whenever something like this happens, or have the paralegal to do that, you're more than welcome to just send out the normal email that talks about the office action. And you could even do that after you make time to speak with the client. You could then send this out after, or, there's other different ways that you could possibly do it depending on your situation. You just want to make sure that your standard operating procedure identifies what that different situation would be, so that the paralegal or any support staff that's supporting you would be aware of what that process is, so that they can then handle it accordingly. And your tasks, obviously, that you are implementing inside of the workflows would be slightly different, because this is a step that needs to be reflected in the workflow as well, because you would assign the task to the staff members through the workflow, or maybe you would just have the paralegal create the task internally. A couple of different ways you could do that as well. Continuing on to the other email templates that were created, and that's going to be the notice of publication, where you're just notifying the client that the application is going to the publication phase and what they can expect involving that. And last but not least, the trademark being formed and it actually being registered and the email involving that. Now, this email as well has two different versions because one version just talks about, them having the certificate and what they can do now that they have the certificate. And the other email actually requests for feedback. It requests for a review, right? And so you can choose which one you want to do here. If you want to make sure that you get a review from the client, then you would definitely make sure that you send out an email that talks about the certificate and what they can expect now that their trademark is registered, but also then ask them to leave feedback on how they felt like their experience was working with the firm. We took the route of doing it as a link to an intake form as opposed to putting it on the Google page immediately. That's something that you can make at your discretion. You can choose the route of going ahead and sending them the intake form so that you control the way that the review is published and placed out into the world, or you can provide them with the link to be able to just go right on Google. It's up to you how you want to go about doing that. Whatever makes the most sense to your firm, that's the way you're going to want to handle it. And actually, I could probably even show you the intake form now. Let me pull up the intake form so you can see it. All right, so this is the intake form that I prepared to be used for the client giving feedback at the end, and you'll see that it's very simple and straightforward. It just requests their first and last name. It tells them to rate their experience from 1 to 5, 5 stars being excellent and would highly recommend, and then it gives them the option to choose the stars here. In addition to that, they can write any additional information that they want about their experience and leave that feedback. Now, sometimes firms like to upload an image, so we're giving them the ability to upload an image, or if they wanted to leave a review as a video, you can always change your email to say, hey, leave us a review as a video, and they have the ability to record the video and then upload it here as a file so that you can see it. Very simple, very straightforward, but I wanted to make sure that I showed you an example of that as well. All right, so now that we've talked about the email templates, I want to go ahead and spend some time talking about the tags, right? Because the matter tags are also going to come up when we're working on the workflows, and I want to show you a couple of tags that I went ahead and created for the process so that you can see them before we get into the workflows itself. Okay, so here are the tags for this situation, and the different ones are just to allow for the system to assist us with triggering the different automations once we get to them. And we focused our time on, matching some of the milestones that are going to come up throughout the process for this particular standard operating procedure, right? And I created one for trademark app attorney approved. So once the attorney approves the trademark application, there's going to be a tag created. Once there is a comprehensive search approved, there's going to be a tag for that too. If the status of the trademark is an office action, there's going to be a tag for that. And when the trademark gets to publication, there is a tag for publication. And then once the trademark is registered, there's a tag for that too. I went back and I added some additional matter tags because I realized that they're relevant to us being able to work through these workflows. And you'll see now that in addition to the ones that were there before, I went ahead and I added a comp search ready for attorney review, a comp report sent to the client, client approval received to prepare the trademark application, attorney approved draft trademark application, client approved draft trademark application, and the trademark app filed. And we also have some tags here for send no change email to the client and draft TM app is ready for attorney review. When I was working on the workflows, I realized that these additional tags that I've added were necessary in order to have the workflows build out the way that they are. And I don't know if you saw all the ones at the bottom here. So I moved it up a little bit so that you can see it. And that's it. The send no change email to the client tag and the draft TM app is ready for attorney review tag as well. Now that I've said that, I want to go ahead and take us right into the workflows so that you can see what that looks like. Okay, so the first workflow that I want to go over is the trademark application questionnaire being completed by the client. So once the client completes the trademark application questionnaire, you'll then see that this workflow begins to take into effect. And I've gone ahead and added some additional information so that you can see exactly the thought process into it. And so it says conduct comprehensive search as a already in use application, and then it talks about what triggers this particular workflow and the intake form that needs to be submitted, and then it shows the exact intake form that needs to be submitted for this to trigger to be able to trigger this workflow. And the question that has to be answered in order to have the matter enter this particular workflow is the question in the questionnaire that says, do you currently have examples of the mark in use? If the client says yes, then the team will begin to be able to begin the process, right? And the team will then be assigned with the task to go ahead and review the questionnaire and begin conducting the comprehensive report. This was tagged as a high priority, and you'll see here that the trigger date is also here. When we were working on the SOP, I didn't actually add a due date to that one step. So I went back and I updated the SOP, and then I also made sure that the due date was on the actual task so that there was a specific amount of time to have this completed, and then I marked it high priority so that way when the task is assigned to the person, they'll be able to see that it's high priority on their end as well. Now from here, one thing I want you to notice is that there is this marker here that says 1A TM application, right? So in the event that the client says that the mark is not already in use, they haven't actually used the mark, we are able to do something different because I went ahead and I created a 1B as well. And so that will then create a different kind of process for this particular application, because this application is now going to be a mark that's not already in use. So it's going to be a 1B application, intent to use application. And you'll see that the entry rule says that this is no. The reason why these are separated this way is because there's a little bit more steps, as you probably already know, when it surrounds a application that has the mark not in use yet, right? When it's an intent to use application, there's a couple more steps, and we're focusing on only applications that are already in use in commerce, so that way we can streamline this process. And I wanted to just show you what it would look like in the event that you wanted to make sure that there were two different workflows happening for whether a application is intent to use or already in use. Okay, so going back into what we're doing today and focusing on the 1A, the next thing that would happen after that, the comprehensive report to be sent to the attorney for approval. In order for this workflow to be initiated, the task that precedes it is to review the trademark questionnaire and conduct a comprehensive search, as you see here. So once the trademark questionnaire conduct comprehensive search task is completed, that will trigger this automation to take place. And the entry rule for this is the task. So it says here the task is completed by the paralegal, and from the task being completed by the paralegal, it also will double check the system to make sure that the task was marked off completed. So just to simply have a task completed by the paralegal is not enough for this workflow to take place, which is great because there could be many tasks that the paralegal could complete, and we want to make sure that it stays specific to this exact situation, right? And so by having this entry rule says task title and have it to be review trademark questionnaire and conduct comprehensive search, we're now informing the system that the specific task was marked completed. From there, the matter is going to be updated with a tag that says the comp search is ready for attorney review. And once the matter is updated, the task will then be sent to the attorney to have the attorney review the file, and they'll have the 4 days. Remember, the 4 days should look familiar to you because that was something that we had inside of our SOP. From here, we then have a time delay of 4 days. And after the 4 days, if the matter tag is updated to contain comp search attorney approved, it will then assign a task to the paralegal to be able to send the approved comprehensive report and the recommendations to the client for their approval. And you'll see here that it says that the paralegal is required to take the recommendations from the notes section of the matter, which I can quickly show you what that looks like really quickly here. Okay, so this is not exactly what it would look like when you're doing it, obviously, but I just wanted you to see where the notes are. So any notes that you put down, that you type in here, will show up over here in this section, and that's where the paralegal will then go in and copy this information and then apply it to the email that was in the email templates that I showed you guys earlier on. Going back into the workflow here, you'll also see that if the tag was not assigned for the comp report being approved, there is a reminder that's sent to the attorney to remind them to go ahead and review the comp report. From here, you can then go ahead and add another task after this time period. So it gives it 30 minutes. There's no more time because it would be past due at this point. So after this, you could then go in and add another time delay. Let's say you want to make the time delay to be 2 days. So you'll go ahead and you'll make the time delay to be a certain amount of time, and then put 2 here, and then you'll want to make sure you put days down here and save it. From here, you'll then go in and add a task. So we're going to use the same matter from the previous step, and then we're going to say here that to send the comp report to the client, we're going to assign it the task of please review the matter. Once we have that, we can then just copy the information from here and paste it over to the other side. And then we will go ahead and put no start date. We'll just put it as the actual date that this ends up being triggered. And then the due date would be, because it's past due at this point, it would be 1 day. And we would then assign it to the paralegal. And then save. And that will take care of this. And you'll notice that the exit rule is that the comp search attorney approved is the matter tag that makes the end this particular automation. What's going to happen is that the next tag that gets placed on is based on the attorney completing the comp search ready for attorney review task. So once it's completed, the matter is then updated with the tag comp search attorney approved. And once it's marked comp search attorney approved, that would be when this ends up going out. So after this 4-day time frame waiting period, it will then trigger for this to go out. And if this doesn't go out after the 4 days, then this is happening over here. From this particular step, we'll then move on. Okay, so once the paralegal marks the task completed that she sent the comprehensive report to the client for review, the file will then update, right? And this particular workflow will be initiated because this workflow says review file for client approval. And this workflow really just ensures that the paralegal reviews the file to make sure that we receive back the approval from the client. If we don't receive the approval back from the client, you'll see here that the task is assigned for the paralegal to send a follow-up email to the client to then ask them to please go back and make sure that they review the email that has the recommendations from the attorney. So as soon as the task is marked completed, the file is updated to notate that the comp report was sent to the client. From there, there's a 3-day waiting period because we're going to give the client 3 days to tell us that the comprehensive report with the recommendations are approved. Once they're approved, the system will send a task to the paralegal. And you'll see here that once the task for the trademark comp report review, the file is marked complete, that is what starts the update of the matter to have this tag on it. And then that's when the task will be sent to the paralegal to begin preparing the trademark application. And as you see here, there's a 3-day due date on this. Once the paralegal goes ahead and completes the draft application, the system will then send a notice to the attorney to have them review the trademark application. So what you see here is draft application is ready for attorney review. That's this workflow, and you'll see that the task it's triggered by the task being completed, and the task in question is the prepared trademark application task. So once that task is marked completed by the paralegal, it will then update the matter to reflect that the trademark app is ready for attorney review. And from there, you will then see that the attorney is assigned a task to go ahead and review the trademark application. And it does have that 7-day due date as was on the SOP that I showed you earlier on. So once the attorney goes ahead and approves the trademark application, we're going to end up doing the same thing that we did here for the comprehensive report is ready for attorney approval. So let me just do it with you guys really quick. So the draft application is ready for attorney review. It updates it. It assigns a task to the attorney. From here, we're going to then have a time delay. And the time delay is going to be 7 days, right? So 7 days, because that's the amount of time that we gave the attorney to go ahead and work on the application and approve it. We'll save this. And from here, we'll then check the system and say, okay, well, was a tag applied, right? And we'll filter it out with condition logic, and logic A is going to be the condition, or branch A is going to be the condition of the matter tag. And we're going to say that if the task is completed, so we're going to base it off of the yes, and then we're also going to base it off the no. So if the task from, let me make sure this is right. The task, yes. So the task is completed. So we're also going to say here, if the task is completed, we're going to do is no. That's going to make our branches here. So we're basing it off of this review draft application. So once this is marked completed, if yes is marked completed, it's going to then do something. So if it's marked yes, it's going to add a task for the paralegal to send the trademark application to the client for approval. Okay, so I went ahead and finished out the branches so that we could see what it looks like here. And as I was saying earlier, if it's branch A, then it was marked yes as it was completed, and then a task is going to be assigned to the paralegal to send the draft application to the client for review. So it's going to add a task to the paralegal to send the trademark application to the client for review, and there's a 3-day due date on this. If for whatever reason the attorney didn't have a chance to review and mark the task completed, then a reminder is going to be sent to the attorney to have them review the file by email. It's going to send an email to the attorney to have them review the trademark application so that it can be sent to the client for approval. It will also then, after that, send, hopefully by then, it will then be marked completed, and then it will send, we can actually add another time delay here, actually. And we can give it a time delay of, since we're making that 30 minutes, we are going to give this a day. and a day is going to be delayed, and then it's going to send a task to the paralegal to send the trademark application to the client for approval, because by then hopefully it would be marked approved. All right, so we have our workflow here that is for the review of the file by the paralegal to check to see if the client has approved the trademark application. And so this trigger is started by the send draft TM application to client is marked completed. Once the paralegal marks this completed, that will then start this workflow to take place. And the first thing that will happen is that there will be a 3-day time delay. Okay, so after the 3-day time delay, a task will then be sent to the paralegal for the paralegal to review the trademark application, to review the file to see if the trademark application was approved by the client. So if the trademark application wasn't approved by the client, the paralegal is responsible for sending out email 2A to the client to follow up on the approval. And I did that offline, so I'm going to show you really quickly what that looks like, and it is here. So we'll send a follow-up email to the client to ask them to review the draft application, and if for whatever reason they need to schedule a meeting with the attorney to better understand the application, there is also a link for the client to schedule time with the attorney to discuss it. Now, it also has something outlined here that says the application is still pending approval and action required as the subject, just to ensure that that takes place. From here, we're going to rely on the paralegal to mark the matter tag as client approved once the client approves. From there, the file is going to be updated, right? So we're basing this off of the tag client approved. And once the client has approved, the trademark application is ready to be filed. From here, a task is going to be signed to the paralegal to then go ahead and make sure that she files the application with the USPTO. And once she files the application with the USPTO, she's going to be responsible for marking the trademark as filed with that tag. So we're going to add this here for her to please remember to mark the file or mark the matter with the matter tag trademark app filed, and this will ensure that the tag is added to the file. So once the trademark application is filed, the paralegal is going to be responsible for marking the matter with trademark app filed. And once the file is marked trademark app filed, it will then have a time delay of 45 days. And after the 45 days, it will add a task to the paralegal to have them send an email to the client. And they would send email number 4 that there's no trademark update. There's no update to the file. And the paralegal has 7 days to send that out. From there, if there's still no change, I will then issue the second workflow. And this workflow is just basing it off of the task being marked completed as there's no changes to the file. So once she or he completes the task she reviewed the file and there's no changes, there's going to be another 45-day waiting period, and then it's going to be assigned a task here to review the file again and send an email to the client letting them know that there's no change to the file. If there's still no change after that, there's going to be this workflow here, which is change number 3, and it's triggered by the entry rule, which is the completed task of number 2. So as long as the paralegal marks review the matter for changes 2, it will then proceed to have another time delay of 45 days, and then the paralegal would be responsible for sending another email, the same email, number 4, to the client. From here, there's going to be a time delay of another 45 days, and from that 45 days, we're going to see if there was a publication notice that was sent to the firm on behalf of the client. And the paralegal would be responsible for putting the issuance date into the system so that everyone's aware of the notice of publication date. From this step here, it also will also want to make sure that we tell her to add the notice of publication tag to the file. So we want to make sure that we do that here. So she'll add the tag to the file for the publication. Now, from there, the file would then be updated based on this. So the tag would be added to the file for the trademark status of publication. And once that matter is updated with that tag, because that's the entry rule, you'll then see that we're going to send the client an email letting them know of the publication date. And it also has which email that needs to be sent to. Then there's going to be a 2 months delay because it usually takes about 2 months for the USPTO. And from there, the paralegal will be notified to check for the trademark registration and then send the final email to the client on the attorney's behalf, letting them know that the trademark has been registered. All right, so I just want to quickly show you what it would look like to set up the workflow for the trademark registration component of it. So let's say that, the paralegal checks the file and confirms that the USPTO has registered the trademark. From that particular point, it would be the responsibility of the paralegal to add a tag to the file saying that the status of the trademark is registered, and we can actually add that in here as well. All right, so I went ahead and updated this task slightly so that it reflects that if the trademark application hasn't been registered, please update the file with the trademark status registered tag. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now, at this point, to make life easier for everyone, what we're going to do is create a condition logic, and we'll have it only have 2 branches. The first branch is going to be for the tag, and the tag is going to contain that the status has been updated to registered. And our second condition here is just going to be that the tag not contains trademark status registered. And so we'll have one branch that it contains the tag, and then we'll have one that it doesn't. Now, as we've done before, what we want to make sure that we do at this point now is to just ensure that the email goes out to the client letting them know that their trademark status is registered. Because we have 2 different emails, like I showed you earlier on, I'm just going to make the executive decision to go with the one that has the review. And so we're going to add in the team member here, and it's the paralegal, and then the recipient is going to be from the previous step. I'm just looking for the email address for the member so that we can update this. And I'm pulling this not from the matter value trigger, but I'm pulling it from the task trigger, and we're pulling the client email in here. And we are going to use our template. Since we have a template for this already, we'll just go ahead and use it. And it's going to be trademark registered review requested. So we're going to go ahead and hit copy email template content. And you'll see that it's now updated. The only thing we need to do now is insert the contact name of the matter. And I'm just going to pull in the client name here. In order for the client to leave the link to the survey that I showed you guys, you would just have to insert the link here for your internal survey or the link to the Google page. You can do it either which way. You just have to switch up the language slightly, but we don't actually need this information there because we have our default signature. So now we'll go ahead and hit save on the email, and now everything on branch A is set up. So now we're going to focus on branch B. And if the tag was not added, we can assume the USPTO hasn't registered the trademark. So now we're going to add a task. Because after 2 months, we're checking in on the status of this. If after 2 months it's not there, I'm going to delay this by another month. So before I add in that task, I'm just going to do another time delay and then make it for a set amount of time, and then we'll do 1 month to give some time for the USPTO to register the trademark, and we'll save that. From this time delay, we'll now go in and associate the task to the paralegal to have them check on the status again. And I'm going to use the information that's here and just add it to step 10 here. And then we'll also add in this, and just it done, and then we can make the due date here 3 days. And we'll just do 3 calendar days, and then done, and we'll assign it to the paralegal. And we can even add a tag as high priority again here. And we'll go ahead and save this. At this point, we can search the matter to see if the tag was added. And then we can have the email sent out at this point. And then we'll do the same email. The recipient is going to be the recipient from the second step. And we'll insert in our registration with review request here and insert it like we did before. And we'll go ahead and hit save on this. Before we do though, actually, I want to make sure that I add in the person's name. And then save. Alright, in addition to everything being set up here, we also have our exit rule. And the exit rule is consistent with what we have in the branches, and that's the trademark status being marked as registered tag. And that would take care of this final workflow. And this workflow would technically need to be updated as well, sent for publication and trademark registration. And we can even also update the description here as well. Okay, so I went ahead and I updated the description as well for the workflow so that it all looks neatly here. It covers both situations. And now this will fully take care of this workflow. All the changes have been made and everything is good to go. So we can now move on from this. Okay. We've made it through all 3 parts, and yay to yourself for making it to this point. I spent a great bit of time going through each one of the workflows and the ways that we can possibly set up workflows. And the reason why we went with a lot of the workflows that we did is because we wanted to make sure that we were highlighting the SOPs. So now that you've had a chance to actually see all of this and in the works, and we've also done a couple of the workflows together, how are you feeling about it? I hope you're feeling empowered and you feel like you can go ahead and craft your own SOP and use your CRM to make those SOPs come to life. If for any reason you're hung up on any of the steps that I went through, definitely feel free to leave a comment below and we can unpack it and discuss it in more detail. I've also provided a link to my calendar so that you can book time with me if you want to just ask me a simple question in regards to any of the components that I went through in the making them come to life in your CRM. This has been so much fun for me and I hope that it was valuable for you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you haven't done so already though, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that you can be in the loop on any future videos that come out. Until next time, continue thriving with your systems and have an amazing day. Bye.